Welcome to Blue Marble Defenders story number 35, Caught Red-Handed. Introduction. Hello, readers. I'm Leo, one of the Blue Marble Defenders and narrator for this story. It includes some science and some things scientists have imagined but can't prove. I'll tell you if they have the facts or if they're guessing, but I'll try my hardest to show that when bad things happen in this world, you can overcome them if you have courage, use your ingenuity, and do what's right. Chapter 1. A town full of strong kids. We had just left Albany, New York, after finishing dealing with a swarm of helicopter pinprickers from the planet Venus, and we were driving toward Boston, Massachusetts, when Pops turned off the New York Thruway and announced he decided to drive through his hometown in the Berkshire Hills. Hey, there's no urgency to capture that Martian ice buffalo in Boston Harbor. It must be the same one we corralled on that ferry boat last year. I heard he'd escaped from the aquarium a month ago, but he knows his way around the harbor and he's no threat or even a real nuisance to anybody. Let's take a couple of days off so I can see my old house, the cemetery where my great-grandparents are buried, and check in on old friends. You know, guys, Little League season is almost over, but you might be able to arrange pickup games and find other fun things to do. Well, we checked into a suite of rooms with a kitchen at the Maple Table Motel and drove to the town hall. Pops greeted his old friend who had been elected mayor. They reminisced about their school glory days of playing baseball and carousing, while the three of us just sat bored out of our minds. Seeing us shift around in our chairs, the mayor, whose name was John, told us there was a Meet the Baseball Pro session starting at the ball field in only about a half an hour. Pops tossed me the car keys and said we were on our own for the day, and he would just walk back to the motel on his own. We parked the car near the field where the bleachers were full, and an overflow crowd lined the fence from home plate all the way out the right field line. The pro stood on the pitcher's mound and was speaking about the importance of a positive winning attitude. He said, "Out hustle, outwork, outthink, outplay, and outlast your opponent. Hard work beats talent when talent slacks off. And don't let fear of striking out keep you from swinging with all you got." These might be well-worn baseball platitudes, but they have a lot of truth in them. The crowd gave him a huge round of applause. One of the coaches stepped to the mound and said, thank you, Maximilian Smith. Those were motivating messages. Now, folks, we'll end this portion of the session with a little hitting demo from Max. Okay, batter up. The coach put down his clipboard and microphone, picked up a glove and ball, and tossed Max a meatball. Well, that ball exploded off the bat and flew over towering cottonwood trees behind the fence in left center. The sign on the fence said 180 feet, so whenever that ball did return to earth, it must have been over 400 feet away. A trio of young boys headed into the tall grass beneath the trees, trying to find a great souvenir. The coach picked up his microphone again and said, a number of Williamstown baseball players have also asked for the chance to hit today, and I invite them to make a line by the home team dugout for one swing apiece. The first kid looked very cocky, went to the plate, wiggled his bat, but he whiffed. He swung again while still at the plate, shielding the sun from his eyes as if watching his hit sail out of the park. Then he jogged toward the bleachers with a humble smile. The second kid was a bruiser. He pounded the plate with his bat, held it far back, and hit a line drive over the center field scoreboard at least 250 feet. The next boy was a normal size, but his hit went into the trees. 'Trees, maybe 300 feet in the air. A girl followed, and her hit cleared the left field fence easily. There was an occasional swing and a miss with this bunch that were batting, several ground balls and pop-ups, but the number of balls that went over the fence in a single swing just astonished us, and the distances kept the three of us shaking our heads. When the coach announced that demo day was over and said the afternoon's scheduled game would start in a half hour, the great majority of attendees filed past us toward the parking lot. Tess said, "What a hitting demo, just out of sight. This town's full of strong kids. Strong, but they must have super sharp eyesight, too. I'm going to talk to that coach and see what I can learn about how they build such skill and strength here." Well, Rookie and I further kicked around what we just witnessed, and we watched local families and a few individual old-timers stream out. Tess was back in 10 minutes and told us, "Coach Ramsey told me they have no special program to teach hitting or build strength. This is a brand new phenomenon, this strength business, and he caught sight of it only a few weeks ago. I asked if he worried some of the kids were using steroids. He acknowledged he did worry, but that neither he nor any other coach he knew could figure out what the heck was going on." Daughter told him a new food supplement called Maple Muscle was behind it, and her boyfriend was taking it. He's the kid who blasted one over 300 feet. Coach said he phoned the university and learned that this Maple Muscle wasn't a steroid or a banned substance. He speculates its advertising provokes a strong placebo effect, and kids do better simply because they think it makes them stronger. The coach's final thought was that kids might just be swinging harder because there's hopeful talk about the town's chances of going to the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. But guys, there must be more to it than that. Kids don't just read an ad in a newspaper and go hit a ball 300 feet. Tess, Rookie, and I walked up the street to a sandwich shop, bought subs, and returned to the bleachers to eat and watch the game. We couldn't help but notice both teams' players were either just normal or stars. The stars were highly athletic in the field and able to gracefully scoop up any ball halfway close and fire off a precise, powerful throw in an instant. Normal kids fielded and threw well one time, but kicked the ball and threw bloopers other times. Star pitchers consistently fired bullet balls over the plate, while normal kids, well, they had some fairly good moments and some pretty bad moments, just like you'd expect in Little League. The performance gap was truly astonishing here. Tess chatted up a girl sitting next to us and found her name was Lorna, and one of the stars playing on the game was her brother. Rookie noticed an older guy hanging around, leaning on the fence behind first base, and between innings, Rook walked down and remarked on the number of players who had powered the ball over the fence during the demo session. The guy replied that most of the best players had trained hard, but also took daily supplements of Maple Muscle. When Rookie returned to the stands and related his conversation, Lorna commented, "Oh yeah, my brother takes that too. He really likes it." Tess gave us a glance. After the game, we drove back to the motel, swam at the pool, and played around, making music on our computers. Pops returned at the end of the afternoon, and we convinced him to take us out for fried chicken, and then to the ball field for the evening game. We told him about the unusual number of stars and their capabilities. Pops nodded and said, "Hey, come on, competition can push you to do your best and at times do more than you ever thought you could. If it ever happens that you're not happy by comparing yourself to somebody else, don't sit around and feel insecure. Get your butt to the gym and work out." Well, Pops had said it with a smile, and he added that always comparing yourself to others is a good way to make yourself unhappy. So his comment didn't sting, but I did reflect on the truth in it. As we climbed up to the top of the bleachers, I realized my hands were still greasy from the chicken, so I made my way back down to wash them at a faucet near the groundskeeper's equipment shed. I skirted the backstop on my return and saw the guy Rookie talked to about maple mussel. He was smoking a cigarette, and I said, "Excuse me, sir. This afternoon you told my brother about a super effective performance enhancer. I never heard of it and was hoping you could tell me a bit more." The man looked at me and looked up and down at me with a kind of a snarl on his lips and said, Sure, kid. If you're a ball player or you want to be top of anything athletic, it's the best thing for you." "Wow. What's it made from?" "Well, I can't say. I can only say the development it was a huge expense, and it is unique. Nothing else like it now, and there never will be." "I'm not from around here. Can you tell me how to get some?" This town is the test market for maple mussel. You can't get it anywhere else for now. If it succeeds here, it'll be sold all around the country and probably all around the world. I can't say when." "Hey, can I buy some from you?" The guy took a drag on his cigarette and blew smoke right into my face. He studied me, grimaced, and said, "Nope, that's for locals only." Then he flipped his cigarette onto the grass, turned and hooked the fingers of both hands onto the backstop fence. During the game, Pops noticed a man in a police uniform standing near the right field line and walked down to talk to him. He was another old friend named Mac who had become police chief. After each caught up on what the other had been doing the past few years, Pops asked Mac if he knew anything about maple mussel. The chief replied, "I know a bit, and I'm convinced it's a scam, even if it does seem to work, but nobody can say it's not legal, so I have no reason or authority to act. You see that sketchy guy behind the backstop? Name's Punky. I've had run-ins with him before, and he's its distributor. Hey, it's all theoretically legal, but for me, they're red flags, and I'll be keeping a lookout. You can be sure I won't let my kids try this stuff, though." Mac had been intrigued by Pop's work with extraterrestrials and asked if he could stay in town to teach his officers how to deal with ETs should they arrive in town one day. Pops agreed and extended our vacation. Now, Tess did better at gathering useful information than the rest of us. She spotted Lorna and found she was watching this game because her boyfriend's team was playing. Tess asked if she could say more about maple mussel and learned the stuff was a powder taken in clear capsules. Lorna said, "Hey, boys are attracted to it because its wrapper claims it'll make you strong like a maple tree. The distributor, that smarmy guy over there by the backstop, he says it's an extract from some exotic animal from outer space. Says it's not a synthetic drug and taking it has no downsides at all." Tess continued. She went on to say her brother heard that it's an even more powerful booster being released soon. Now, her boyfriend is really competitive and wants to try it, but he has to save up his money. Lorna's afraid everybody will eventually take it, get stronger, and she'll be left behind. So she's kind of like watching and waiting. The evening game had the same mix of awesomely strong stars and normal kids. When the game was over and we were walking to the car, I felt Punky's cold stare at the back of my neck. Chapter 2. One surprise after another. We are defenders and detectives who need to understand what's going on and how things fit together. But this was vacation, and we should have been just goofing off and having fun, not spending our time on the mystery of how a town could be filled with so many mussels. Still, we couldn't shake it. It was driving us crazy that we had only 2 tiny clues. Punky had said a big investment had been needed to develop maple mussel, and Lorna had said it originated somewhere in outer space, not on Earth. If you've read other Blue Marble Defender stories, you already know Tess is a great researcher. She jumped on the mystery, sorted through several ideas, and when she developed a promising one, she interrupted Pops, who was doing his prep for classes, and she wanted to explore it further. After that conversation, she rushed to the swimming pool where Rookie and I were playing video games and told us this. Since your father is an astronomer, you probably know many scientists think the moon was formed millions of years ago when the quite young Earth was hit by a small planet called Theia. The huge explosion liquefied part of both Earth and Theia and blasted a portion away to form the moon. Now, most scientists believe the rest of Theia was submerged into Earth's core, but some believe a fragment of Theia shot away and is now in the asteroid belt out beyond Mars. Nobody knows for certain if or when this collision happened. When I talked to Pops, I learned something that could possibly be related. An unidentified billionaire recently sent a pair of rocket ships into the asteroid belt. There were rumors of them having returned with something unique, but those guys weren't talking. Now here's my theory. It's not fleshed out yet, for sure, and it's a real long shot. But whatever was on those rocket ships might be the raw material for the mysterious maple mussel. However improbable, simply having a possible answer to this mystery allowed the three of us to put aside the mystery for a while. Now, Pops wanted us to do fun stuff, so we cast around for ideas. Rookie came up with rafting down the Green River that runs right next to town. Since Tess had more experience on water than Rook or I, we declared she was in charge. She found a raft rental company located upriver, allowing us to put in at their shop and be driven back when we finished. The weather was nice, so we didn't mind getting half soaked when we pushed in. The rental agent said the water level was moderate and our float downstream wouldn't present any big danger or strenuous paddling. Tess took the front, while Rookie and I planted ourselves in the rear where our job was to move the raft faster than the current so Tess could steer. The day was sunny, and the riffles and rapids weren't scary, and although we weren't having a big adventure like Huckleberry Finn on the Mississippi with a log raft, we were having a good fun time. Tess saw a modest waterfall ahead, less than a meter high, and steered us into a quiet pool near the right bank to observe. He was planning the safest route over it. We heard a loud crack followed by a metallic clang. Looking up, we spotted a large tree crashing down at us. There was no time to escape. It missed the raft, but thumped the water and sent a cascade of water on top of us. Rook was struck by a branch and bleeding from his right forearm. Tess and I were untouched but shaken. Hey, I've read about lumberjacks being killed by falling trees, but I never expected the terror of being in the path of one. It took my breath away. Tess was speechless, and Rook was in pain. Tess and I paddled to the shore, and she phoned the rental company. They arrived in a large raft equipped with medical supplies and a medical first responder. Rookie accepted first aid, but refused their offer of a trip to the hospital for x-rays. As soon as he was bandaged up, he insisted on finding what caused the tree to fall. There was no mystery at all this time. Fresh sawdust said it had been cut by a chainsaw. But we hadn't heard the loud sound a chainsaw would have made. All the rental company staff could do was shake their heads. They took photos of the maple tree's stump, particularly after Rookie pointed to a few centimeters of splinters sticking up, indicating the tree hadn't been sawn all the way through. Did that explain why we hadn't heard a chainsaw? Searching for other clues, Rook headed up a bent grass trail leading from the tree stump to the woods lining the bank. After only a few steps, he kicked something and we heard the same metallic clank we had heard before the tree crashed. Reaching into the grass, he pulled up a 2-meter-long steel crowbar. The first responder's eyes widened. We'll report this to the police. They'll contact you when they investigate. The three of us looked at each other, convinced the tree had been prepared to be dropped on us when we passed. Back at the motel, Brooke and I took showers and plopped down on the sofa with our digital music software to make some music, while Tess took a few laps in the pool. When she returned to our room, we three talked around the fallen tree and speculated on who could be behind it before Rookie and I went back to our music. Tess was pensive and said she was going to phone Lorna and see if they could meet over a soft drink. She stepped outside with her phone and returned an hour later. Tess was anxious to talk when she returned. She said, "First, the big news. I arranged a pickup baseball game with the three of us and the local volunteers on one team against Lorna's brother, boyfriend, and the other Maple Marauders, as they call themselves. Tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Tell me now if you're not up for it, and I'll cancel." Rookie answered with a bellow, "Whoopee! I'm in, thanks." And of course I agreed too. Nobody can be around so much baseball without itching to get onto the field. With a thumbs up and a satisfied smile, Tess continued, "Hey, there's more. Lorna checked with her boyfriend after last night's game, and he said he'd started taking maple muscle without telling her. This morning, she went down to the ball field behind the dugouts where the guys, including her brother and boyfriend, often hang out. She found them acting kind of differently. Rather than the normal horsing around and loud talk about sports, much of the time they stood rubbing shoulders up against each other, looking around, sniffing the air. She said her brother and his friends have always been a bit weird, but this brings their weirdness to a totally new level. On top of that, she says the guys are also excited because they heard the billionaire behind Maple Muscle is planning to form his own baseball team and enter into the Little League World Series. He's certain they could beat anybody on the planet." Rookie and I replied in unison, "Whoa! After that, his sales are going to go through the roof." Chapter 3. Ouch! Feeling just a little nervous about playing against the Marauders, we made sure to get a good night's sleep and eat a nutritious breakfast. We arrived at the ball field just before 9 o'clock, and Lorna was already there. She walked up and greeted Tess cheerfully with, "Hey there, sign me up to play second base with you guys." Tess answered, "Lorna, you're in and you can play any position you want." I added that we were glad to have her, in part because we had no idea how many players would be willing to play against a group as formidable as the Marauders. She said, "Don't worry about filling out a team. 4 or 5 kids said already they'd see me here. We can go straight out and warm up because the Marauders have been out there for half an hour and just came off the field." Well, we went out on the field and 5 more players did arrive. Since Rookie is the most avid ball player of the three of us, Tess and I named him captain and sent him over to the Maple Marauder dugout to sort out which team would be home and which would be visitor. When Rook returned, he said, Hey guys, we're all set. We bat first, and the game will only be 3 innings because a couple of the Marauders have to be at work by noon. No umpire, so we'll have to leave it to the batter and catcher to agree on balls and strikes. If they argue, it's a do-over. Okay, team, let's gather around, introduce ourselves, and tell what position we normally play. Rook set the batting order based on the scorer's standard position numbering convention of 1 for the pitcher, 2 for the catcher, 3 for first, and progressively higher numbers around the infield and into the outfield. But he made the batting order from high to low because he was pitching and didn't want to also assign himself to bat first. The Marauders took the field and threw practice balls around while their pitcher warmed up. Our players checked out the various wood, aluminum, and steel bats we borrowed from the equipment shed, and the game was ready to start. First up was our right fielder, Mary. She wisely watched the first pitch go by, both to settle herself and to gain a sense of the pitcher's stuff. It was a blazing fastball that hit the catcher's mitt with a pop. The next pitch seemed identical. She swung a little late, but tagged it toward the hole between first and second. The first baseman, he dove, snagged it with his web on the first bounce, rose to his knees, and sidearmed it to a pitcher who seemed to have just floated over to cover first. I was up next. I grabbed a 31-inch wood bat with a wide barrel, and as I walked to the plate, I noticed the third baseman was playing back well behind the base. Taking the first pitch, I couldn't help but being startled by its speed. The power behind it made me want to connect a full, hard swing to it, but then again, the third baseman was so far back, and it presented an opportunity just too enticing to resist. As the pitcher released the ball, I squared around, laid down the bunt exactly as I wanted, and dug for first base. Focused on running, I didn't see the play, but I couldn't miss as the ball arrived at first base well before I did. I learned later from Rook that the third baseman had charged the plate the instant I squared around. He had vacuumed up the ball at full stride and rifled it to first while in midair. I thought my bunt was about perfect, but obviously the third baseman's fielding was more than perfect. Our left fielder was next up, but he whiffed on 3 pitches, and we changed sides. We fielders threw a ball around, and Rookie warmed up for the first batter. I was happily surprised at the infield chatter supporting him, since he was a stranger to most of them. The first batter came to the plate. Rook did his windup, threw what from center field I thought was a fastball, and pow! Whack! Rook was down. The batter had sent Rookie's first pitch back at him like a rocket. The sounds told the results of a fastball, a ferocious swing, a dead center contact, and Rook catching the line drive. But his power knocked him off balance, and he fell. He was able to hold on to the ball and was quickly back on his feet, dusted off, and gave concerned infielders a brief wave of his hand from his hip level. Holy smokes! I think I was more shook up than he was. The next batter also jumped on Rook's first pitch and sent a hard line drive between center and left. I ran it down and was pleased my throw to Tess held the batter to a double. It really didn't matter, though, because the next player up, a lefty, sent a towering fly ball over the right field fence to clear the bases. The ball landed on the street and bounded well into the weeds. The next batter hit a real shot. A hard grounder between Tess and the third baseman went through for a single. He was followed by a batter who let a pitch go by, but he sent Rook's second pitch into deep center. I jumped and snagged it at the fence, but the runner on first tagged up, made it to second, and when my throw drifted wide, Tess couldn't handle it, and he made it to third. The next batter tapped a slow roller to Lorna. She upped it to try for the runner at the plate, but he beat her throw. The next batter's high fly to left was caught, ending the first inning with the Marauders up 3-0. At the top of the second inning, our third baseman struck out on 3 pitches, bringing up Tess. She tagged a sharp ground ball past the pitcher and over second base for a single. But when Lorna followed her and hit an easy grounder to their second baseman, Tess became the first out in a slick double play. Rook and I had watched in astonishment when the second baseman snagged the grounder and, to avoid blocking the path for Tess, leaped higher than we'd ever seen a ball player leap, spinning at the same time and throwing to the shortstop, who rifled it back to first. What a play. Our at-bat was over in about 3 minutes, and we headed back to the field. The bottom of the second started with 2 long home runs to left. You might have thought a coach was tossing meatballs to pros rather than Rookie throwing his hardest to 10, 11, and 12-year-olds. Rook was finally able to get through the inning when we outfielders took in 3 deep fly balls. That brought us to the top of the 3rd inning, down 5-0. Our at-bat in the 3rd inning started badly. The first baseman struck out and the catcher bounced an easy ball to the first baseman, who made an elegant and unassisted play. That brought up Rookie. He tapped the plate, settled in, and watched an outside fastball go by. The second pitch was curving inside, but Rook took a huge swing, sending a high drive down the left field line. This was a great blast, but it hooked foul just before it cleared the fence. He swung and mixed the next pitch for a second strike and ended his at-bat with a pop-up to the first baseman. Well, we batted first and the score was 5-0, so there was no need for the Marauders to bat in the bottom of the 3rd. Our pickup game was over and the Marauders had definitively dominated us. Rookie returned to the dugout and brought the team together for a small cheer. Then he jogged over to the Marauders and he arranged a rematch for 2 days later. I noticed Punky was there, but only as we were walking away. One of his disgusting cigarettes was hanging from his lip, and he flicked it near my foot when he was done. I looked down at it, and he called out, louder than necessary, "I saw you dudes don't stand up well against maple trees. If you have any friends, describe this game when you go home. Word of mouth is our best advertising, especially when it comes from losers." I didn't dignify him by turning around. The 3 of us walked to the motel where we sat in the living room and chatted about the game. Rookie was still jazzed and did most of the talking. "Did you feel their focus? These guys lock on you. It's like they want to pull you apart. I felt it in the batter's box when their pitcher was eyeing me, but even more when I was pitching. They're ferocious competitors. Today I felt more like Darwinian eat or be eaten than a pickup baseball game." Tess added, "I was aware of the intense focus too, Rookie, but you felt it more than I did. I think they're agile, incredibly agile, and so fast. They must train like mad. Say, is it just me, or do you think their players looked a bit strange? And did you notice the slight red stripes on their faces? I thought it might be makeup or paint. And maybe it was just me, but somehow a couple of them appeared to have red hands, almost crimson." Rook and I said she was either more observant than we were, or she was just subconsciously imagining things to explain us losing so badly. Bobs was at the police station teaching his course, so we spent a quiet afternoon at the swimming pool. Rookie worked on a digital song, Tess continued her research, and I tinkered with a reliability problem I had had with a little invention. We had a surprise visit from Mac. He'd seen the report on the maple trees near miss on Green River, noted that the circumstantial evidence was suspicious, but the police would not be pursuing the matter unless we thought someone was targeting us. We said we suspected Punky didn't like us, but had nothing concrete and wouldn't push him to pursue the matter. Chapter 4: The Past and the Startling Future. The next morning, Rookie and I half crawled to the breakfast table, still half asleep. Tess offered us tea and said, "You guys might be amused that yesterday's little pickup game has made it into Williamstown's online newspaper in an advertisement for maple mussel. The reference is indirect, but there's no doubt what it means when it says, 'Need more proof after that? You too can be strong as a tree. Pay no attention to worry warts. They'll just dampen your thunder.'" Well, I shook my head. Rook said, "It's interesting these guys would tie their advertising with just a pickup game. They must consider us a threat to their sales growth. Tess looked up and said, I agree, but I want to change the subject. Pop's comment about rogue scientists returning from the asteroid belt with something mysterious has been on my mind. What if some parts of Theia form the moon, others are buried inside Earth's crust, and still other parts careened off and are still in the solar system? The asteroid belt, maybe. If that happened, and if Theia also took bits of Earth with it when it moved away, well, the asteroid belt could contain the very same building blocks that started life on Earth. Now, guys, I know that's a lot of maybes strung together, and asteroids are very small, and we haven't heard of any with an atmosphere, but it could mean there's life out there. Now chew on this. If life is on the remains of Theia, it might have followed the same evolutionary path followed on Earth, but slower because the asteroid is small. So, it's imaginable an asteroid today is hosting the same dinosaur era that Earth went through millions of years ago. Hey, that comment sure woke me up. Rookie, too, he said, Whoa, Tess, I agree it's a low probability, but who knows? Tell us more. I don't want to get carried away with an unlikely scenario, boys. But if Punky is telling the truth about maple muscle originating somewhere other than Earth, just maybe it comes from the asteroid belt and from dinosaurs that lived there. Rookie looked up from the table and said, Thanks, Tess. I love it when I learn something before breakfast, and you just put out ideas I'd really love to pursue right now. Hey, but gang, Pops insists we do less work and find more fun. He wants us to have a real vacation. Tess rolled her eyes and said, So, what have you cooked up for us today, bro? The best I can come up with is a visit to a modern art museum. Can you two handle that? Well, we headed out just before 9 o'clock, hoping to be among the first in the museum and have a place to ourselves for a while. We arrived at the parking lot and saw the museum was housed in a century-old factory with brick walls, super high ceilings, and big old windows. As we walked to the door, Rookie said, Surprising location for modern art, eh? This building might have made a better history museum. But that was his last word of skepticism. Creative, colorful, striking artwork lined the walls and riveting sculptures were positioned most everywhere. Light shows and sound shows dazzled us, and unexpected materials such as water, soil, and crystals were used in ways that astonished us. But the most amazing piece of what the museum defined as art was suspended in the last room we visited. A full-size, mature tree, a maple tree as a matter of fact, was growing down toward the floor from the ceiling. It was alive, healthy, and its roots appeared planted in an enormous pot suspended above us. Now, readers, this is the kind of situation where Rookie comes up with his most humorous observations or jokes. So I was just looking at him in anticipation, and then I heard a scraping noise coming from over our heads. The tree with its giant pot of soil falling straight toward us. No time, move it. We dove to the side just as the crown of the tree struck. Its leaves and branches jammed us and pierced us, but they pushed us away from the tree trunk and pot. Those hit the floor with the force and sound of a bomb. The floor, walls, and ceiling of the massive building shook. Windows shattered, sculptures fell, and artwork was thrown askew. Each of us was temporarily deafened. Each of us was scratched, bruised, and shaken. But we were alive. Following a ton of interviews with emergency responders and the museum staff, we drove back to the motel and planted ourselves by the pool. I sat in the sun. I didn't think. I cleared my mind. I appreciated being alive. And I snoozed the afternoon away. That evening, we walked down to the field and again watched a baseball game. The new teams showed the same exaggerated divide between strong, focused, and highly agile stars and normal kids making a few errors and a few good plays. Rook and I watched for the red lines on faces and red hands Tess had noticed. Each thought we saw something but couldn't be sure it wasn't the evening light playing tricks on our eyes. I again had the sense that something was different about the star players, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Chapter 5, Beginning to Understand. The next morning, Tess headed toward the motel's pool with her PC and her unrelenting drive to find clues to what was behind Maple Muscle. Rookie and I headed out to determine if Fund was in town and possibly behind the 2 trees that crashed on us. Our first task was to check stores and to learn who had been buying chainsaws. The good news was there weren't many stores in town. The bad news was the biggest store, the last we checked, was having a blowout sale. The parking lot was packed, and getting a staff member's attention was tough. After unsuccessfully chasing several people wearing green aprons, Rook and I decided to wait our turn in the checkout line. When we finally arrived at the cash register, I asked the clerk if he had sold any chainsaws in the last week. He looked at me as though I were an E.T. Buddy, you see all these people behind you? You think I got enough time to go to the office and check our records? And I don't normally work the register anyhow. I'm just filling in because of the sale. We could understand his annoyance with us, but our question was important. Who normally handles the cash register? Rook asked. The clerk waved toward a corner of the store and said, She's back there helping customers with technical questions. Then he waved his hand for us to move aside and said, Next. We made our way through wheelbarrows, fertilizers, spreaders, and lawnmowers to an area crowded with wood chippers, paint sprayers, and, happily, chainsaws. We stood respectfully as a short, dark-haired lady tutored a man on the benefits of 3 different paint sprayers. The second she was done, we got her attention and asked about recent chainsaw sales. Well, we placed a special order for the day before yesterday for a regular customer. It was for a high-end chainsaw. Not in yet. We did sell a replacement chain over the weekend. I guess that's about it. Rookie said, Might you remember anyone buying both a chainsaw and a large crowbar at the same time? Thanks for jogging my memory. Yep, there was one guy who bought both. Ha! He had no experience with saws, wanted a quiet one, easy to use an electric one. But when I asked if he planned to use it at home, he said, No, out in the woods. And I reminded him he'd need to buy a long extension cord. So he reconsidered and bought one of those gasoline-powered models over there, saying it would be noisy. So he'd also take a crowbar. I hope you're not from an insurance company here to sue us because of some accident. She smiled when I said that wasn't the case and said, Is that all you wanted to know? One other thing. We're curious what the guy looked like. Oh, he was normal looking, I guess. Had some kind of a beard like most men seem to have these days, that's all. Would you call it a goatee? Yeah, I guess that's what it's called, but, I'm not much into that male vanity stuff. Rook and I thanked her and headed to the Modern Art Museum. We knew where to go and who to see at the museum because of the unfortunate encounter we'd had with the upside-down maple tree. Mr. Westall was in his office with the door open, so we rapped on the wall and he waved us in. Welcome up again, boys. I sure hope you're not here because of a secondary injury from the accident. No problems. We're here only to check out a possible coincidence. Okay, I'm intrigued now. How can I help you? Ricky said, We didn't mention it, but we'd had another encounter with a tree this week. One fell on us while we were rafting down the Green River the day before the accident here. Oh, my goodness. That's a suspicious coincidence, and I see why you're concerned. Did you report it to the police? Well, we did, but there was no evidence of a crime. We learned about a person who bought a chainsaw and thought we'd check if the same person happened to be near your upside-down tree when it fell. Ooh, interesting. We investigated the accident and concluded a restraining bar had inadvertently been left off, leading us to assume some natural vibrations in this old building might have caused it to slip from its moorings. Say, do you have a list of those with access to the ceiling support structure or any surveillance camera footage? Well, guys, we have no cameras in the ceiling, but our investigation did list everyone in the area at the time of the accident. The only activity one might consider unusual was a tour of the museum's operations for a new donor. Could you give us the donor's name? I'm sorry. He made an anonymous donation and wanted no recognition. Now, it's our strict policy to respect such wishes. I trust you understand. Ricky and I looked at each other, and I said, Of course we do, Mr. Westall. Might you be able and willing to give us a description of the donor? Westall raised his eyebrows, pursed his lips, and shook his head. I followed up with, The day of the accident, did you happen to notice a man in the display room or in its superstructure who wore facial hair, a beard that might be called a goatee? Westall raised his eyebrows, tilted his head, and gave a small, tight-lipped smile. We returned to the motel, joined Tess at the pool, and told her what we'd found. She nodded thoughtfully. Rookie asked if anything she'd found in her morning's research seemed relevant. Well, some things perhaps, others perhaps not. Interesting but less relevant is that comparing a dino's skull size to its body size likely indicates its intelligence, and it means that meat-eating dinos were likely more intelligent than plant eaters, but neither could think in words as humans can. Skull structure might be more relevant. When the space for a dino's olfactory lobes is large compared to their descendants such as crocodiles and birds, it's likely the dino had an acute sense of smell. But smell was probably used for more than finding food, tracking dinos, or detecting threats. It probably also served as a communication method. One dino could tell if another was close family, its level of intelligence, and whether it was healthy. Raptors, the meat-eaters like T-Rex, probably had superior vision. Based on the size of their eye sockets, they would have been able to make out shapes from more than 5 kilometers away. We humans top out at about 1.5. They apparently saw things in color as we do, and probably had colored markings that further helped them identify relatives and enemies. That's about it. I am going off to a store to buy a few things. See you later. When Tess had returned, we three walked down to the Little League field but found no games or practices. Walking back past a block of storefronts, we heard chatter through an open window on the second story and noticed a sign at the street level identifying Bobby's Pinball, Skee-Ball, and Pool. We climbed the stairs and entered a lively scene of game playing and socializing. Punky stood alone near a soft drink machine. Rookie stepped ahead to confront him. Well, if it isn't the town dope dealer. Watch what you're saying, buddy. You can't say such a thing. I could call the cops on you, prosecute you for false accusations, and damaging my reputation. Oh, I kind of doubt that you want to get too close to the police, since you never know what they may learn next. Go take a flying jump. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll take what I see here and jump over to the Food and Drug Administration or the Drug Enforcement Agency. They got no problem with the things I sell, stinko. Go pound sand. They might be more interested after we tell them a thing or two, Rookie said. Punky made a fist, gritted his teeth, walked straight up to Rookie and said, "You got a nice nose there, bud. Maybe you want to keep it in place, eh?" Rookie looked him straight in the eye and said, "Yep, I like it just where it is, and I'm pretty sure it'll stay there and live happily ever after. Not sure if I can say the same for you and your friend Fund." Punky blinked. His mouth dropped open at the mention of Fund's name, and he started to walk away. Then he half turned and said over his shoulder, "Keep it up, wise guy, and you'll get yours. You're making accusations against a legitimate enterprise. If you don't cease and desist, you'll find we're very, very capable of defending ourselves." When we were back on the street, Tess said, "Look, I know you're stirring up Punky to get him to lead us to Fund, but you went a bit too far there." I added, "She's right, Rook. Your aggression might make him feel self-righteous and justified in blindsiding us next time." Rookie nodded and said, "Yeah, plus Mom and Pops would say I was rude. So let's hope he's worked up enough to bring Fund around out in the open, but not worked up enough to hit us from the back."